Matt, thank you so much for joining me. I'm misunderstood again for a second time. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for adjusting your schedule to mine. I'm a little hectic over here. I got a baby due any day, and son that just had surgery, so it's a little crazy over here. So thank you for making time for me.
Oh my God, of course. I mean, I've been reading everything in the news about your son being in a car accident and then having appendicitis. Is that correct?
My son was actually doing some conditioning for his high school basketball team and was running outside of the school, and he said he was running with his head down, and all of a sudden he got hit by a car. So luckily I laughed because it wasn't too serious. He just kind of had a bruised side and hip. And then 2 days later, terrible stomach ache. They do this big game at LA Live now for called the Mamba Invitational. So both my son, my twins were playing in it, and Isaiah had a horrible stomach ache, but didn't tell anybody because he wanted to be able to play in the game. So he plays in the 3 games, still has a terrible stomach ache, still doesn't tell us. So he said he doesn't sleep the whole night. And then the next morning, they wake up around 10 or 11, and my other twin says, like, "Dad, Isaiah can't get out of bed." I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" So I go over and talk to him. He's like, "I've had a stomach aches since yesterday." I was like, "Well, how come you didn't tell me?" He's like, "Because I wanted to play and you wouldn't have let me play." So we take a look at him. He calls his mom. His mom looks at him and sees that his right side is a little swollen. So I take him to the emergency room, and sure enough, he has a appendicitis. So I rushed him to UCLA, and he had a successful surgery. So he's in day 3 of recovering.
Wow. So he's home.
He's home. Yes, he is home.
Amazing. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's all good news. Incidentally, did the appendix have anything to do with him getting hit by the car?
No, the doctor said there's no rhyme or reason for appendix or anything like that. You can't do anything to prevent it, and you can't do anything to cause it. So he said the accident didn't have anything to do with it. It was just one of those things that just happened to him. So luckily we were able to catch it before. They said it was the biggest appendix he's ever seen that hadn't exploded. So
Wow. All right. Well, we wish him a good recovery. That's great that is over with. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. But anyways, here we are now. I'm happy to see you. So you've had a lot going on since I've seen you last. I saw you about a year and a half ago. The one thing I want to bring up is when you were on the show, you did mention that by the time you were 50, you would love to get into the political arena, potentially becoming mayor. That got picked up everywhere. I'm curious if anything has transpired since we had that conversation. Have you thought more about that in a serious way?
I've thought about it. I haven't necessarily acted on it in a making my plea to run for mayor eventually. I've been, doing a lot of, political work. I work with an organization called Project 68. And it's a group that we travel around the country and just encourage people to educate themselves. We educate them and then to encourage them to register and vote. We don't tell them what side to do what. We just encourage information and to arm yourself with knowledge and make sure they are registered to vote. So I haven't necessarily done anything in steps of term of possibly, being mayor of my hometown in 5 or 6 years, but I definitely have still been involved, with this election coming up in November.
So I know you do a lot of mentoring with kids, and we're talking about the election coming up too. What are you seeing with kids that you talk to? Are they eager to vote this time around? Do they not want to get involved? Like, what are you hearing from them?
I think it's mixed, and I think it's due to a lack of educating ourselves, them educating themselves. I feel like we live in a culture of reading the headlines because there is so much information thrown at us daily, and I'm guilty of that sometimes. Sometimes I'll read the headlines and just think I know what happened in that whole article, and then when I go back and read the article, I'm like, oh, this headline was very misleading.
Right.
I think we live in a culture of people reading headlines, and whoever puts out the most information, whether it be misleading or the truth, is usually what people stick with. So I just, we continue just to encourage the people to do. You spend so much time on your phone, Google, do some research. Obviously you can take information from people, but I would fact check as much as possible. So it's kind of split. I'm seeing a lot more people actually step up and be willing to vote in the Black and brown community and in those target areas, those early 20s to mid 30s that are interested. And I wish them the best. I hope it's a good experience. And I always kind of feel like this whole political realm is huge, and if you're new to it, it's very overwhelming. So I always encourage the local and state vote, or where you can see some immediate turnaround, in your neighborhoods and your schools. stuff like that. And then as you continue to see some traction for your vote, hopefully that'll increase your appetite to want to step up your game to the federal level. So again, big election coming up in November, and just the more people out there to vote, the better.
Do you what are you seeing as the biggest issues that mean something to these kids or to the people that you're talking to?
I really, obviously the women's rights, although that's left to states now, that was something that was unbelievably disruptive and crazy to think that a bunch of older men put together a situation that think they can tell women what to do with their bodies. The way they're trying to, hide history and not tell our history. I think there's a lot of different issues, and everyone has issues that obviously pertain to them, and that is a part of my message. Is this race right now is more about policy, really. Whether you want Kamala or you want Trump, look to see where they align with policies that not only affect you, that affect your family and affect your community. And, a vote according to that. Again, I'm not up here to tell anyone who to vote for. That's a privilege we've all learned or earned. Yeah. We have the right to vote for whoever, but, look at the policy and see where you lie compared to who you want to vote for lies. And I think that'll tell you a lot.
It is very interesting. It's a crazy time right now in politics, and it is, for better or for worse, in my opinion, a great way for people to start voting for the first time because it's so in your face. It's become kind of pop culture, entertainment news, and political news. So whether you're reading the headline or you're watching, the DNC, what just happened last week, or you're watching anything that's going on, Fox News or, anything going on with Trump, there's so much out there to follow and to watch. But you're right. I mean, I think it really should come down to policies, but sometimes that's harder said than done because you get swept up in all the other comments or things that are going on. I'm curious, did you watch what happened last week in the DNC? Did you watch any of that?
I did. I saw day 1 and day 2. I didn't get a chance to see day 3. And I liked it. And again, I liked what, they were talking about. And, always a big fan of the Obamas, and they were able to come out and say their piece. And it's just, again, I think we live in such a crazy time, and I think Trump is thriving on just kind of the chaos because he performs well in chaos. So it's going to be very interesting come November. But I think, if everyone gets out there and votes, I think the right person will win.
Yeah, I did think that a lot that was done last week was really powerful. I personally felt like I was in tears watching how proud Gus was of his father up on this up on that stage, and I thought it was really terrible that a lot of people made fun of him. That really hurt my heart for him because I was in tears watching that moment and Googling him and being like, "Oh my God, vote for Gus's dad!" He's amazing.
The empathy and the sympathy from a certain side is a little crazy. The fact that they attack anything. Vulnerability, emotion is very interesting, but again, it tells you a lot. So that's why I think it's so important to, obviously first and foremost, educate yourself and then get out there and vote.
Right. So I just do have to ask you, have you come out and endorsed any candidate in particular then?
I have not yet. I'll be voting for Kamala. But again, I think also it's a lot of policy and to be able to do my part to help people educate themselves and encourage to educate themselves.